What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can text us at 865-658-5824. You can email us PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. Just want to say good morning to everyone. Excited to get in here and talk a little Packers with you guys. Obviously, still riding that high off the big win there in Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. Still looking for the turkey leg. Don't know what happened there. Hearing a lot of conspiracy theories go around the internet, which that's what makes the internet so great, right? So probably going to be flying solo the entire show. Hopefully you don't get tired of me. May get a little bit more dead air on this show just to take a breather and get a sip of this diesel that we're sipping on here this morning. Hope everybody's got your cup of Joe out there ready to roll. We got the chat already lit up in here. Nick McSwain says, crazy that Goff was pressured 27 times on 44 dropbacks. That's wild, man. If that stat is correct, I mean, you've seen it all day long, Nick. It was just a great defensive performance. I know people are still hating on the Packers, and, some say, I actually put a tweet out just a second ago kind of pointing out the statistics and where we sit in points per play and points per game. And, had someone respond, which is totally cool. We can disagree. It's all good, but say, I just hate the way he played there at the end of the game. And I think fans look at it a little bit different, right? I've listened to a lot of people, like I've read a lot of Bill Walsh books. I've listened to people like Michael Lombardi, other great defensive minds, right? I'm a big Bill Belichick, follower as far as his entire career, what he's done well, what he's done not so well. The way I seen that fourth quarter, I had no problem with the way Barry called it, because once you get to a certain point in the game, guys, the opponent isn't the other team. The opponent becomes the clock. That's just the way I see it. And I'm not saying I'm right and that person's wrong. That's just kind of the way I see it. I do know this, that if we had played more aggressive and we would have ended up losing that game, I guarantee you those same people would be sitting here going, I don't understand. The clock's the opponent there. Why would we do that? So it all comes down to how you want the defense to play. I'm seeing other people calling for Robert Saleh. If Robert Saleh gets fired in New York, let's bring him to Green Bay. Guys, I hate to break it to you, but Green Bay's defense is outperforming the Jets. That's a fact. Now, it's happened all year long. The problem is, people all year long, the gatekeepers have not allowed us to acknowledge that the defense has played well, because we, quote unquote, haven't played anyone, even though we had played Detroit, right? And so now you play the Chargers and you play Detroit again. Detroit's still one of the top offenses in the game, and you hold Detroit's offense to 14 points through three quarters. Think about that. 14 points through three quarters. And then you have to start to play the clock, right? And you get to the point where it's okay, we're cool with them scoring here, but they're going to use every inch of the field. They're going to use every second off the clock. And you've seen that defense bend but don't break. I've always been of the opinion a bend but don't break defense is a positive thing. What it simply means is you're not going to allow them to get in the end zone. And we've seen this red zone defense really step up. Yes, we want to limit the explosive plays on the ground. Obviously, that's been an issue. No one said this defense was perfect. I've said all year it's a top 15 defense. People told me I was crazy. Right? Not everyone, but a good select group have told me I was nuts. Now what I'm coming to the realization of is I totally expected this 3-game stretch us to drop out of the top 10 in defense. And that may very well happen after Kansas City. It can't happen too much unless we just completely screw the pooch. We all know they've got drop issues with MVS and some of the other – even Kelsey's had some drop issues here lately. So if we come out of Kansas City and we're still in the top 10, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to be rude and point it out, because it's just wild, man, that people still don't want to acknowledge how good this defense has played. And I said it several weeks ago, and I got to be real. I was a little bit hesitant in saying it when people, this team doesn't have an identity. This team has had an identity all year long. It's just some folks, some Packer fans are so dug in on the fact that they hate Joe Barry that they don't want to acknowledge that the identity of this team is this defense. Period. Case closed. And it's, well, you should be good on defense. Look at all the draft capital. Do I need to remind you how many people are on the bench with injuries? You did that against the Lions without Jair Alexander, without Rudy Ford, right? Without, arguably, Darnell Savage, whether you like him or not, this team looked at Darnell Savage as a starting safety, right? You've been without him. You've been without Rashawn Gary very early in the year. All those things. So it's just time to acknowledge that. But yeah, Nick, that's a crazy stat, man. You love to see it. Did you absolutely love it, especially against what some were saying is the best offensive line in the game. And that wasn't me saying that. That was proven NFL, former NFL people, personnel, players, right? Going, this is the best offensive line in the league. When we broke it down, leading up to the game, what did we see? We seen, PFF completely agreed. With the exception of the left guard they had plugged in at start at the, in the starting lineup, which I didn't even pay attention to see if he played or not. Other than that, it was arguably the best offensive line in the league. So just a really, really good win. Nick also says, Sup, was watching some Jordan Love film breakdown, and it looks to me like he's using his eyes more to lead defenders away from where he's throwing. That's something he's been good at, Nick. We've seen it in preseason. We've seen it early in the year. He's been good at that, maybe to a fault sometimes, but I think what you're seeing is the game really is, like someone said here later, the game really is slowing down for Jordan Love. And that's kind of allowing him to I don't know, man, to sit back there a little more comfortably, but not recklessly in the pocket either. I felt like his pocket awareness was way better in this game against Detroit. But yeah, he's doing the little things good. Now we've got to fix the accuracy, right? The timing was an issue there in the second quarter of the season, in my opinion, right? Kind of that 3 to 4 game stretch, right around weeks 4 through 7. It just seemed like his timing was really off. You can see the timing is really settled in. Now let's hone in that accuracy, which is getting better. It seems to be getting better. I think 2 of the last 3 games, he was above 60% completion percentage, if I remember correctly. So, and even higher than that. I think one game it was like 77 or whatever it was. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah, completely agree. Doug in the chat said, I'm doubling down, tired of all the mealy-mouthed analysts. J Love is quarterback 1 present and future. Hey, I love that you've made that decision, Doug. I'm almost there, dude. I'm getting so close to feeling the same way. If you had to make me choose today, I would say yes. Just his composure, the way he's leading the huddle. When you need a play, he kind of makes it, We're one of those teams that it seems like every time we're in a third down situation, that number has really amped up with the third down efficiency. I don't know the exact number. That's just kind of speaking from an emotional standpoint of watching the game. But I would like to kind of take a look and see if that number really holds true. Doug also in the chat said, game's starting to slow down for Love. It's fun to watch him progress. To Nick's earlier point, absolutely, completely agree. Nick McSwain says, every time the Packers win, people find a way to blow it off. It's so true, man. And specifically for me, it's irking me how they do it with the defense. That's what's really bothering me. 1 second we're talking about how there's so much parity in the league and how, the worst team is so close to the best team. I know I feel that way. But then the second that you stand you stand real firm on a hot take, which is what 99% of the analysts do, and that doesn't come true, now you start backpedaling and try to find ways to validate your previous comment, right? And it's just silly. It's just a weird way to watch football. Omer in the chat said, watch Mike Wall's tape. Nice to see such a positive broadcast from our tape for a change. It is. It's a nice change of pace for sure, Omer. Appreciate you being in here, buddy. Nick says, people are saying, still saying, wait till they play a good team and saying, quote, yeah, but Goff sucks. Like he hasn't been playing great this year. Dude's been one of the top quarterbacks in the league. An elite PFF grade going into this week, if I remember correctly. You're exactly right. You're spot on there. And then Omer says, Malik Heath looked like Wicks. They lost to nothing with his absence. I don't think he looks as good as Wicks, Omer, but you're right. They didn't lose anything without him. I mean, that dude, they're 2 different receivers, right? To me, Malik Heath is a great blocker, and I don't say that in a negative sense. I mean a great blocker. He's got strong hands. He knows how to position his body. He done a great job improvising there with Jordan Love on one play where he kind of ran a sit route, did a little shimmy left, worked his way to the sideline. Great throw by Love on the run. I think across his body, if I remember correctly. And I think they converted on a first down right there. So, or on a third down, I believe it was. But yeah, 2 different types of receivers. Malik Heath is an absolute, Dontavian Wicks to me looks like an absolute technician in his route running, right? I think Malik Heath might have a little bit better hands than Dontavian Wicks, but Dontavian Wicks is a lot shiftier and just has that ability to find those soft spots in the zone. But, as I'm answering that for you, Omer, it is kind of popping out to me that, both of those guys do find the soft spot in the zone when the play breaks down really well. So I could kind of see your comparison there, man, for sure. Let's see what else we got going in the chat, and then we'll kind of get into what we're going to cover today. Let's see. Number one Packer fan says, "What up, squad? It's funny how the narrative is the Lions played a bad game, not the Packers outplayed the Lions in every phase of the game." People are talking about those fumbles, right? Oh, well, if they don't fumble, show me the fumble where they just fumbled. Because I'll show you every single time they fumbled the ball, a Packers defender was hustling their arse off and knocking the ball out of the player's hands. Like, Jared Goff looked like a deer in headlights. And we're going to sit here and pretend like, well, the Lions just gave the game away. It just cracks me up, man. Let them keep betting against the Packers. Again, we were expecting them to go somewhere between 6 to 10 wins. It looks like we're going to probably fall somewhere in that 7 to 9 range. Is kind of what it looks like. But let them keep doubting. Let them keep doubting the Packers. I love being the underdog. Absolutely love it. You let this team somehow, some way squeak into the playoffs, and it's going to be game on. It's experience. First of all, you're playing with the house's money. It's going to be experience for a young team to get some kind of playoff football. That would be phenomenal. If they don't make the playoffs, the momentum you've created in spurts is really setting you up to be successful in 2024. There's no doubt about it. So let's do this. Let's kind of get into the playoff talk since we already kind of went down that road. I've got a couple images here. I wanted to talk about this. I'm going to kill my camera for a second, and that way you guys don't have to stare at my ugly mug up in the camera trying to read this stuff to you guys. I'm getting old, fellas. Getting old. Let's see. Playoff chances. PFF tweeted this out. PFF Green Bay Packers. You can follow them at PFF_Packers. Says, so you're telling me there's a chance. 21% is the chance of them making the playoffs now, according to PFF, okay? And I'm sure those analytics are correct. So 21%, you guys remember it dipped really low a couple weeks ago, right? And here we are back with almost a quarter chance of making the playoffs. That's really exciting stuff, especially if you get hot towards the end of the year. You can finish strong and kind of solidify that playoff spot. That would be awesome. So when we look at the standings currently, the Eagles have the number 1 seed at 9-1. By the way, a great center. The 49ers have the number 2 seed at 8-3. Absolutely loaded roster when it comes to the 9. I mean, you look across the board, they have I think the most well-balanced roster across the entire league. The Eagles are just so darn good in the trenches. The Lions number 3, but I thought we hadn't played anyone. The Lions sitting at 8-3 in the number 3 spot. We just beat the number 3 seed in the NFC, guys, and beat them handedly. Right? Saints in the number 4 spot. They are the ugly stepsister, obviously, at 5-5, leading that horrible NFC South division. The Cowboys come in at the number 5 seed at 8-3. Man, the NFC East is just so darn good. The Vikings at number 6 at 6-5, and then the Seahawks at number 7 at 6-5, and then of course your Green Bay Packers at 5-6. So you can see, as we get into the playoff hunt, what we're going to start watching are the Vikings games and the Seahawks games, right? We need the Packers to take care of business. Absolutely. It's the only way you're going to get in. But I think it's really, really cool that you can start to keep an eye on some of the other teams. Oh, by the way, we play the Vikings one more time too. I'm thinking about going to that game in Minneapolis. I really am. It's that would be a lot of fun. Seattle, though, not impressed by Seattle here of lately. They've really began to struggle. They've lost 2 in a row. It just seems like they're in that cyclical. They're in that cycle that we talk about, with the NFL being cyclical. It even happens within season. A team will go on a little bit of a streak. Other teams will catch on. They're watching the tape. They're catching on to what they're doing well, what they're doing bad. They start exploiting those things, and the team will start to struggle. Now it's on the coaching staff to kind of turn it around. So this next game for the Seahawks, I don't know who they play, but both them and the Vikings, to see how they're going to adjust. Josh Dobbs came in. I know my nephew is a Vikings fan, was just ecstatic over Josh Dobbs. Stand-up dude. Went to UT right down the road here in Tennessee. Just one of those guys that you want your kids to look up to, right? Extremely intelligent, great moral standard, all those things. He came out, played well, but now you're seeing defenses start to adjust to him, right? They're going to start to take away some of those comfort zones. You got to get tape on that quarterback now, right? So that's just kind of how that plays from a cyclical standpoint. Let's see. We got Jake Shavink in the house. Says Seattle having San Francisco, Dallas, San Francisco, Philly is one in one stretch is tough. That's awesome, dude. So they just played San Francisco. Obviously, they got Dallas next, San Fran again, and then Philly again. Yeah, man, that's really playing in our hands. And Jake, if you're free, man, you want to hop on here? I sent you the link. Feel free to jump on, buddy. I don't know if you might be just kind of listening in the background. That's totally cool too. Yeah, that's good information. Appreciate you sharing that, man. That really shows you, with Seattle. I'd like to see Minnesota's remaining schedule as well, just to kind of see how that's going to play out there for sure. Let's see. Nick McSwain in the chat said Cowboys versus Seahawks. You got Paul Robertson says Dallas looking very sharp, man. They look good. Dak's your MVP right now, guys. There's no two ways about it. I know some people just roll their eyes, but I'm telling you, man, he's protecting the football a lot better. I think he's leading the league in touchdowns, in the top 5 in touchdown passes. No one else is close to him in as far as interception percentage. Seems like some of those people are some of those quarterbacks are kind of throwing more interceptions than Dak. He's been protecting the ball here lately for sure, it seems like. So the Seahawks have got, like I said, the Cowboys, the Eagles, and the Niners again in San Fran. And it's going to be in San Francisco. You're right. So it's going to be tough for them. Yeah, like Jeffrey says here in the chat, when you believe in yourself, anything is possible, man. Hey, momentum's a real thing in the league. I know some people kind of scoff at that, but momentum is a very, very real thing in the league. Omer in the chat says, if we lose to Kansas City and win out, we're 10-7, which is a guaranteed wild card. The old saying, win 10 and you're in. Seattle is only one game ahead of us now after their loss versus San Francisco. Imagine if we beat KC. And Omer, I know you've been very vocal. You think we're going to get beat by KC. I think that's a very realistic prediction, man. Kansas City is solid, dude. They're so good. They've got their struggles. I think that Detroit has been playing better ball than Kansas City, but the way I always try to pick these matchups, these questions, if someone were to ask me who's the better team, Kansas City or Detroit, I'd say, okay, you got one game to win, a bet. Which team are you picking? I'm picking Pat Mahomes and Kelsey over Jerry Goff and Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's just me personally, right? And I'm definitely picking Andy Reid over Dan Campbell, right? They got the pelts on the wall. So that's kind of how I look at that for sure. So, all right, so there is your playoff percentage. We've looked at the NFC standings, trying to stay organized over here for you guys. So we're talking about everyone else's schedule, right? And Mark here in the chat says we can beat KC. I completely agree. Let's see. Chris in the chat says key for Packers is being able to duplicate the intensity they brought to the Lions game. Big difference maker. Emotion, man. They were running on sheer emotion. You could tell that game was personal to Rashawn Gary, man. That was really exciting to see him step up and see how much it meant to Matt LaFleur to give him that game ball. We're building a team. We're not collecting talent, right? And everything's starting to peak at the right time. So here is, I like to look at different websites for different information, gang. What I want to do is kind of give a global perspective. I want to cover all the bases. We want to cover everything on this pod. So when you look at how the schedule stacks up for the remainder of the year, this is from the 33rd team. So what they're doing is they're using SIS data to determine their own power ranking system. So when you see these numbers next to these teams, that's their power ranking system. Now, last time I checked, they didn't have the Detroit game updated, so that's totally cool. I just want you to know that's their power ranking for Detroit going into this game. So if we recap the season that we played already, right? You beat Chicago. They were ranked 23rd. You lost to Atlanta. They were ranked 28th. Bad loss there, right? You get the W against New Orleans. They were ranked 16th. You lost to Detroit. They were ranked 3rd. So you lost to a top 5 team there, top 3 team. Against Vegas, they were 29th. You lose that game on the road. The Broncos, they were 25th. You lose that game on the road. Now you play the Vikings. They were ranked. They're ranked 9th, so a top 10 team there, obviously. With them being ranked 9th, you lose that game. It's kind of understandable, right? We're going to bring Jake in here too. We'll have him in the background. Jake, you're in here, brother. We're just hitting this remaining schedule.
All right.
So you got, let's see. Where were we at? Vikings top 10 team. You lost that game, obviously. You come out and you beat the Rams. They're ranked 19th. You lose to the Steelers. They're ranked 15th, according to the 33rd team. And then you get the win against the Chargers, who was a top 10 team. They had them ranked 10th. So Detroit, they had them ranked 3rd. Okay, I just want you to kind of see, if you look at the color code, those dark orange teams, those are solid teams. The lighter orange, those are kind of middle of the pack teams. And then, of course, the Blues are at the bottom of the league. So at Detroit, the 3rd team, according to the 33rd team, say that 3 times fast, you get the win there. Now you got Kansas City, who's ranked 6th. So they're ranked slightly lower than Detroit. I think you got a realistic shot of beating Kansas City. It's just how hot is Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce going to be coming out of the gate? You got to watch for Chris Jones, I think is his name. It's such just a common name. I always think I'm screwing it up. Is it Chris Jones on defense for Kansas City, Jake?
It sure is, yes.
Yeah, God, he's such a beast, man. Such a
he
beast.
is.
So Kansas City ranked 6th. Now, if you get beyond that, the Giants 32nd, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 17th, the Carolina Panthers 31st. Then you got the Minnesota Vikings at 9. Of course, they now have Josh Dobbs at quarterback. And then you got Chicago Bears at 23rd. Man, how cool would it be, Jake, to go into the final week of the season winning your in against the Chicago Bears at Lambeau Field, bro? Talk to me.
Man, that will be an electric atmosphere if that is the case. They will not let Fields and company have an inch in terms of sound. They're going to have to be relaying crap in, eons before guys are in the huddle. So, I mean, I expect nothing less from Packer faithful if that is the case. And, I mean, I know someone said in the chat, hungry Kansas City is dangerous. They got problems, man. They might, take out some frustration on Vegas this week. And that's fair. They probably will. But after that, I think they're going to see that the problem still persists. So, I don't think any game left is unwinnable right now. As much as, it's Mahomes, it's Chris Jones, it's Kelce, right? Like they've got a great secondary and it's young, but just nothing's out of the question, I think, at this point.
Definitely. I think it was Nick McSwain in the chat. Someone just asked me, where do the Packers rank right now? Let me pull up the Bears schedule. That'd probably be the easiest way to determine it. And let's see. So right now they have the Packers ranked 22nd, according to SIS data. So I think we can all agree, both offensively and defensively, the coaching staff is overperforming right now. And that's a good thing, because early in the year, we were all screaming fire everybody, right? Not everybody was screaming that, but a large majority, I feel like, at least the loud ones were. So hopefully that answers your question there, Nick. Yeah, Wolf is right, my friend. Wolf is right. But again, the fact that you're pulling out some of these wins against better teams really says a lot, man. You got your guys ready to go. We're going to get into offense real quick, Jake. It was kind of a bad time for you to jump in. I hate that you're sitting in the background for a minute, but we're going to play a quick video. This came from Packers Daily, Packers.com. You guys can check it out there. You can check it out on their YouTube channel. Also, they tweeted it out under the Packers Twitter account. Make sure you go give it a like or retweet, all that stuff. Really cool video. It talks about the 20 points that were scored in the first quarter for the Packers. So let's check it out real quick. Then we'll get into the offensive side of the ball.
1st and 10 for Jordan Love and company.
We've known since Wednesday, something we put in this week that, we thought was going to work.
I was kind of mulling it over quite a bit, and I texted Jordan this morning and told him I was going to change it to something else, and he said he wanted this call. So I said, okay.
Shotgun snap. Love looking to deal, has time. Deep. Rainbows deep down the right side. Leap and grab. Christian Watson. 53-yard field flipping play to start this Thanksgiving Day.
I wanted to start fast. Wanted to put the offense out there and just set the tone. And that's what we did.
2nd and goal. Four-man rush. Quick over the middle. Caught. Reed is in. Fakes the handoff. Looks to throw. Swings it right side. Tucker. Crab. Touchdown. Steps away. Hitting his throws and it's incomplete. Maybe not. Ball's going to be returned just in case. Ruling on the field. It's a fumble and it's a touchdown. 20-6 Packers in this first quarter.
A resounding 20-point first quarter set the table for a memorable 29-22 victory on Thanksgiving Day. A special day for the Packers, but a particularly meaningful one for Rashawn Gary, who put up big numbers in his return to Detroit.
I can remember sitting right in this room a year ago, when he got injured, and it was a different kind of emotion, obviously, today to come back here and have that kind of game.
And here's the snap. Goff looking. Hit as he puts the throw. Rashawn Gary arrives at the quarterback for the 3rd time today.
Oh, man, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. Having a day like this, having a team win like this, and watching everybody perform how they perform, not one would trade it for anything in the world. Back on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Love it, man. I love the work they do over at Packers Daily, Jake. Phenomenal, man. Mike Spofford, Wes Heikowitz, those guys are awesome. Of course, absolutely. Larry McCarron, too, a national. I mean, we got to protect him at all costs, man.
Oh, yeah.
And the pinky. Wrap the pinky. You know what I mean?
Yep. Get him a motorcade every game.
What do you think, man? I haven't got your takeaways from the game there in Detroit, man. Did you get a chance to kind of peek at the TV a couple times with family around? What'd you think of the
Oh,
game?
so we were obviously like we had an earlier dinner, so we were like 1:30, but like eyes were glued to it, and it was like, all right, we're just gonna eat at halftime. Eat up quick, get 1.5 platefuls there, and give back to see it because that was obviously it's Green Bay on Thanksgiving. What could be better, right? And so yeah, I mean, I loved the idea of all right, let's get the ball. Like I get it. Deferring, getting that double up chance is really nice, and teams have taken advantage of that over the years. I just loved going out there and saying, you know what, the defense played well, but let's get some points on the board first. Let's kind of stress this Lions offense out a little bit, and they did, and that happened last week against Chicago too, right? They got down a little bit. Goff looked shaky in the pocket, and it kind of played out the same way without the Lions comeback this week. So they just the aggressiveness on offense, the willingness to kind of not necessarily get away from the run a ton, but realize that, okay, maybe this isn't the strength right now, and we can find ways to have extensions of the run game by swinging it out to Dylan, where Dylan's going to get chances against 200, 190-pound corners, right, in space. And so playing it, that sort of extension of the run game, but just willing to just force feed Christian Watson and be like, all right, this is your time, man. Let's go take it right now. And boy, he delivered. And just, I mean, going out there and I know my dad called it right away. He's like, just throw it up. Just first play of the game. He said, he's like, no, we got the ball. Let's just throw it up to Watson. Of course they do it. And then that touchdown to Watson is as good as it gets. It's just seeing Watson. I'm thrilled for him right now. How can you not be? Right? Like he's heard it for the last, 2 months now, right? Since he kind of like maybe thought, okay, he's probably back as close to healthy as he can be. So thrilled for him there. Thrilled for Tucker Kraft. How about it? Let's go. First touchdown. I know Goose and I were in the Discord, all caps when Kraft scored. That was a great time. But yeah, it just seems like there's sort of a clicking going on with this young group of skill positions, especially. And I think, when you put out the 5 that includes Ryan and pass pro, they look great. They really do. Like Ryan is snatching guys. He's getting them on the ground. Obviously Myers, I think we know now we know this. He's great in pass pro, right? He's got the eyes, the processing speed for it. And he does a great job there. I'm thrilled from that performance all around. Would have been nice to kind of maybe take advantage of a couple other opportunities on offense and really put this thing to maybe 39-22, right? I think it would have been nice. But again, I think that's part of the inexperience a little bit. Going for it on 4th down, and could have taken some points on the board, made that a 3-possession game early, some of that decision making, but it's hard to fault aggressiveness. I get it. You're on the road. You want to stomp out Detroit. Like this is what you used to do. Right. So we want to go do it again. Not mad at that necessarily, but I think, it was just great to see obviously Rashawn and him playing at that level. Carl Brooks, hello. Welcome to the party. He's flashed the last couple months. There's been some spurts of it. The Saint game, he did really well. He batted a few passes in another game that I can't remember now if maybe it was the Ram game or not, but he's figuring out a little bit. I think Van Ness should be getting more snaps. Like they're coming along really well. And I think, the secondary's young. I'm sure that's a place that they're going to address in the off season, but it yesterday was, you come out like that against Detroit, you drop 20 in the first quarter. As for a team who has not done much in the first quarter, it's like, all right, finally, here we are. We have arrived. We know this offense can do things in the first half. It was so much fun. It just made the Thanksgiving taste a little bit better.
Oh, it was great, man. Yeah. It like I said, man, in our house too, we were down at my brother-in-law's place, and he's a big Washington football team fan. Okay. Huge Washington fan, has been his whole life. So we were awaiting that game. His son is a big Vikings fan. As soon as I got to the house, my nephew Sammy came up to me and he was like, "Hey, we're all pulling for the Packers today, right?" So we were all for once able to root for the same team, and it was a God thing. That's what I say. But anyway, let's talk about the offense and where they rank right now. To the best of my knowledge, this has been updated. I got the screenshot earlier today. So an NFL team's points per game, the Packers are currently sitting 17th at 21 points per game. They're right behind the Saints at 21.4, Denver at 21.7. And hey, people made fun of Denver all year long, but they're starting to turn it on a little bit, right? Things are starting to click. I'm not a huge Sean Payton fan. I'm not, but that you got to give credit where credit's due. You see it, you got to say it. But when you look at the top teams in the league, Big Mike up there with Dallas, 31.5 points. I watched them play offense, and I go, I've seen this movie before, Jake.
Yeah. Tight ends up the seam? Absolutely. We've seen a lot of that. Like seeing Ferguson run up the seam a couple times, Dak forcing those, I'm like, oh, yeah. We know how that goes.
And when you look at the last 3 games, 42.3 points per game in the last 3 games. And the reason we mention this, guys, is because it's important to keep your finger on the pulse across the league to go, okay, what systems are working right now, right? Because the NFL is so cyclical, things come and go constantly, right? You know, it was going into this year, some people were saying maybe Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat. Now you're looking at him going, okay, he's the darling again. He's making adjustments, kind of wrapping back around to things that used to work. Miami, 30.8 points per game. Obviously, the last 3, 22.7. They've been struggling a bit, trying to turn it back around. San Francisco, 28.2. There's your first or your second Shanahan team. Obviously, Miami, the same kind of coaching tree there, using a lot of those same Shanahan principles. Baltimore, 27.6. Philadelphia, 27.3. And then Detroit, 26.7. And I know I literally walked on to Twitter just a second ago, put a tweet out. I smacked the hornet's nest and ran back over to the stream. And so we'll go back here in a little bit and see what happens. But everyone they don't want to give this defense credit. Detroit, guys, is a legit borderline top 5 offense in the league. Now, when you look at offense points per play, okay, let's remove the points per game, points per play. Green Bay climbs to 15th now at 0.345. So you've got a borderline top 15 offense, as were when we started the season. We were talking about kind of there in the outside of the Chicago game, the offense was struggling, right? The defense was kind of carrying the water for a bit. You seen them kind of turning around there in offense points per play. Now,
look at that. Kansas City right next to us. How about
check it out?
Interesting.
Check it out.
Interesting.
Let's go back to points per game here real quick.
Yeah.
14th. Guys, they're not playing like the juggernaut they've been.
And that last 3, man.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
15.7 points per game in the last 3.
Great.
Yeah. And let's see how they do on the road. On the road, 19.4. That's where they've struggled. Jake. So let's I just noticed your name too. Cooper DeJean season. I like it.
Heck yeah.
Hey, do a quick plug. Talk about Cooper DeJean. Who is Cooper DeJean? What position? Talk to us.
Real quick. Yeah, he plays so Iowa moved him around a lot last year. He's a defensive back, great punt returner as well. I know people will like that. Another Keyshawn would be a lot of fun, but Iowa moved around a ton in 2022. Let him play box safety, let him play in the slot, let him play corner. He's played mostly exclusively corner this year. Did break his foot in practice a week and a half ago. So did not get to finish the season, unfortunately, with the Hawkeyes. But it's just the way that Green Bay's kind of trending and where they're going to be picking. I kind of like how this might turn out. I think the secondary is probably the place that they're going to look again in the draft, just based on what just kind of how the evaluations have gone. And I think where they're going to be picking, at least I think when you look at, right, we've talked about the opponents the rest of the way. So I'll be driving that train. I know Ryan will be as well. I'm sure everybody's going to hop on eventually. So might as well start it early here.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it's never too early. It's always draft season, right? I heard somebody say that one time.
Yeah. I don't know. Someone did.
Paul Robertson said KC's problem is losing offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. It's kind of like what the Packers went through too, right? You lose Hackett, then you lose, God, I always forget his name with Chicago. The OC last year. Luke Getsy. And some people are going, is Luke Getsy really that good? Guys, it shakes the entire coaching staff up when you lose people like that. It really does. I like this right here. Chris in the chat said, we need a video of Omer watching the next game wearing a DeGuara jersey. Yes. I'll tell you what, if Omer will post a video, I've got an autographed Josiah DeGuara jersey. I will mail to him and give it to him for free if he'll record that video.
Nice.
I stand on that. All right. I'm a man of my word. Let's do this. Let's talk about the personnel. This is something I've been harping on all year, Jake. Look at me covering your face up as if you don't matter, man. That's so rude.
That's good. I get to zoom in and look at the screen here.
There you go.
I'm good with that.
I will read it to you guys. It's kind of hard to read. This is from the 33rd team when we're talking about personnel groupings. Okay. You guys know I've been standing on the table screaming in the worst redneck voice all year long Play more 11 personnel, play more 11 personnel. Right now, they play 11 personnel. That's one running back, one tight end, 3 wide receiver sets, 64% of the time. The percentage ranking for that amount of 11 personnel is 17th in the league, okay? They run 12 personnel 30% of the time. The percentage ranking across the league is 4th. So they run 12 personnel, the 4th highest across the entire National Football League. And their EPA ranking when they're in 12 personnel is 25th. So you're in the bottom third, right at the bottom of the barrel there as far as your EPA ranking, which is more or less SIS's way of determining how well you're doing something. Okay, it's kind of a success rate, if you will, is the easiest way to describe it. So 25th. Look at the 11 personnel EPA ranking, 14th. Like, if we would stay in 11 personnel more, and Jake, on Chalk Talk, I'm going to be doing it later this afternoon, man.
Okay.
I don't think there's one play on Chalk Talk, and I didn't do it intentionally. Guys, when I do Chalk Talk, what I do is I key in on, all right, I'm trying to remove all the noise. I'm trying to remove the plays, the huge one-handed catch that happened on a drive where you didn't even score. It didn't have any impact on the game whatsoever, those type of things, right? I try to key in on the scoring drive. I try to key in on the explosive plays, right? Any explosive plays, they always make Chalk Talk, because if you hit on an explosive play, it triples your chances of scoring on that drive, and vice versa on defense. If you give up an explosive play, I try to cover it, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think I've got one play, Jake, where we're in 12 personnel, not one. I could be wrong. Sometimes I get into breaking the video down. Oh, yep, there it is. But I'm telling you, man, it was 11 personnel all day. Now, Luke Musgrave was out, obviously. That played a big role.
Yeah.
But to me, it lends credence to the fact that you're having more success out of 11 personnel. You can go back to 12 later. Put a ton of 11 out there. Put it on tape, But how do you see it? Do you see that the same way, or am I missing something there, man?
No, I think it makes sense for them to get out of 12 right now, just because I think you have so much inexperience at the tight end position, where it just doesn't feel like you have somebody who can be that 6th lineman right now. We're trying. We're getting guys up to speed as much as possible. I think Kraft looks better as a blocker, right? We've kind of seen that over the last few weeks. Ben Sims, that's kind of what he's kind of been brought in for as well. And then obviously with Musgrave out, you can kind of look at that and be like, okay, well, these guys are coming along as blockers, but they're not really adding anything, right? There's not going to be anything where we go, okay, no, if we're going to be in 12, how much of a threat are we in the passing game with play action with these two? Like, we've seen Kraft kind of, in college be that elusive player. He played running back in high school. Like he can get to that point, but you see more progression in the first year with receivers than you do with tight ends. That's just how it goes. Unless you're, a Laporta or a Pitts or, a Hall of Famer way back in the day, like in Ditka, like you don't get that very much. So you might as well, I think, in Green Bay, we kind of saw it a little bit, right, in this game, where it was like, you might as well commit to throwing the ball here, because, your possibility of generating explosives a lot better, right? And the threats you have on the field with speed and Reed and Watson are going to give you those chances for explosive plays. You have chain movers. You have a guy who Malik Heath, who could be, 11 personnel, Alan Lazard, extension of the run game, help you out in that, in the run game if he needs to. So you have other options at receiver who can kind of attach themselves to the line if need be, but also have threats in the passing game. So I think it just makes more sense right now for them. I don't think adding, 2 tight ends and running the ball is going to make them that much more successful running it. We've seen it. They're just not quite that team right now with the personnel they have. So you might as well get into the personnel that, is still going to give you options. It's not like 11 is like, putting you in a position where teams are going to know every step you're taking. So I think it's something that, we're going to see that shift. I think we saw it obviously yesterday or on Thursday, and yeah, I don't think there's any reason to stick in a lot of 12 until Musgrave and Kraft have really proven themselves to be multifaceted threats where you can do a lot more out of 12. So I think the shift to 11 makes a ton of sense right now.
Yeah, and again, once you put that on tape, things starting to lighten up a little bit. They start to lighten that box. They start to maybe, in some cases, go, okay, we're going to play dime here as opposed to nickel. Some teams do that, right?
Yeah.
Little 2-3-6 look. You go to that look, now you can really soften things up for the running game. Nick McSwain said, do y'all think they do that to get the tight end seasoned? it kind of feels like they're trying to get them more and more reps running 12 personnel. You think there's some truth to that, Jake?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think they know that Kraft can bring a lot as a blocker. He's just got to get more NFL reps, right? It's a big jump for him. FCS to, the NFL. That's that's a big jump to be taking. So the more reps, obviously, the better for him. And we know Sims has kind of been that type of player as well. I think when next year, Tyler Davis coming back might give them a little bit more to work out of 12, or you can kind of rotate Kraft and Musgrave in. But I kind of like that where they have to, Musgrave had to get reps there, being a blocker on the line, Kraft doing the same thing now. Like it's going to help for the long run. But at some point, right, like you're making a playoff push here. And, if you want to do that, I get it. Get some reps in 12 if you want to. But like we've seen 11 be working right now. And it, you don't have to change a whole lot. And I get it. More snaps, better for these young guys. But, playoffs is also good. We can make that. We can make that push, sticking in a lot of 11.
Definitely, dude. I'll tell you what, this is driving me crazy, Jake. I have seen Matt LaFleur running into that security guard more than I've seen Packer highlights from Thanksgiving. It's dude,
yeah.
the Good morning football is unwatchable anymore. Like I always have it on in the background and kind of check the ticker. It's ridiculous.
Once Kay Adams and Nate Burleson left, it was done.
Yeah, because it becomes the Kyle Brandt show. And I'll just say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can do this if you want to, Jake, but it comes down to we're watching him shave his mustache on the air. We're watching him on Wheel of Fortune. It's like people don't tune in to Good Morning Football on NFL Network to hear you try to be funny. We tune in because we love football. We love the history of the game. 100%. We want to know what's going on. It drives me nuts.
100%. And again, it's not good morning, shave your mustache, or good morning, do the funny stock, whatever thing on Wall Street that they did. Like, I don't care.
And the Kay Adams opinion, it's not a shot at Jamie Erdahl at all.
No.
Right? I think she does a good job. It's just when she left, it lost that. Kay sitting in there with a random NFL hoodie on was like hearing your little sister who's passionate about football kind of lead a conversation about football, right? 100%. And it was it's tough to watch, man. Now it's
there's a reason Burleson's on CBS now, not that. Like it's
exactly.
I mean, and again, Jamie Erdahl, same thing. Like you can only they're giving you what you're doing, right? Like they're you're not the producer when you're on the air yourself. Like this is she's kind of just doing what she can with what they're giving them, right? Yeah. So that's
very true. And you can tell that the producers have geared everything around Kyle Brandt and like, okay, this is his social media presence and all that. Just, I don't know, it bothers me, man. So look at this right here, getting a little love. Cheesehead Murph says, good morning, Lambeau. So much better. I don't know about all that. Now here I am talking crap. Now I'm getting nervous. Probably don't stack up very well. I lost it here. Okay. So, Carly Ray in the chat said, it's a great idea. We're going to start designing some merch. We need to do that, Carly. It's in my notes. I've got like 10 things I got to work on and got to get done. We need to get some merch designed because we got people asking for it. I think that would be a lot of fun. We got a lot of inside jokes on the show too, so we can kind of stamp those on the sleeve or something, little diesel or something on the side. You know what I mean? But dude, it's so fun building a community with people, man. It's been a blast. Let's do this. Let's get to the rest of what we were going to try to cover here. Let's talk a little Jordan Love. You all right with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's kind of cover. I want to cover all the bases here, right? Because we got some people in the chat who think Jordan's the guy. We got others that they're not sold. You got people like me that's like, I want to wait to the end of the year, but I'm trending in. Yeah. I'm about to be sold. But this cool statistic right here popped up. First 11 games. Right. And again, this is on Twitter at Jordan MF Love. Funny name. So Jordan Love, this is the first 11 games for all three quarterbacks, okay? Brett Favre's first 11 games, 2,483 yards, 12 touchdowns, 8 picks, a 6-5 record. Aaron Rodgers' first 11 games, 2,599 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 5-6 record. Jordan Love, the same exact amount of yards. It's just wild to me. 2,599 yards, 19 touchdowns, so 2 more touchdowns than Aaron and 7 more touchdowns than Brett. 10 interceptions, 1 more interception, obviously, than Aaron Rodgers, and 2 more than Brett. That's a wild stat. And a 5-6 record. I mean, this is crazy, right, Jake? How close these numbers are, man.
Jordan Love is apparently the ultimate gunslinger, as it seems. High TD percentage, a little bit higher interception percentage than the other two. No, but this is it. This is so interesting. You know, you said it a couple of times when he was brought up. Either it was yesterday's Good Morning Lambeau. He said time is a flat circle with the 25.99. Like that's just eerie. But yeah, I mean, you've seen Love be efficient at times with touchdown percentage. Like they're giving him chances to, in the red zone. I remember the Atlanta game. They're just scheming stuff up. They're like, we're going to throw down here and let him take over. But he is, I think, becoming. I think everything's just moving a little bit slower for him right now, and that's obviously a good thing. Where it maybe just felt like losing Bakhtiari hurts, and starting to deal with that. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, wow, my throat is going.
Are you good? Take you a break there, man. He's getting emotional over this, guys. This means a lot to us. It's always a joke. It's an overused joke I have on this podcast. Jay.
Yeah, but like it just feels like the chemistry with Reed is improving. I think you're starting to find a little bit with Watson, even though I think we're still kind of underthrowing those deep balls. But at least give him a chance. That's the biggest thing. And Watson will take a lot of those chances. I think the one thing with Love is still, I think there's still decision-making stuff to kind of hash out. I know he's trying to win some games at the end. The Pittsburgh game's a good kind of indicator for that, where it's just like, all right, he's going to take the chance, which is fine. I would like to see him play a little more risk averse, and also hit a lot more layups. I still think you see a lot of things in the quick game that are maybe just a little bit behind, right? They're just not like in a position where a lot of receivers can take advantage after the catch.
Yeah.
But man, the touch, wow. I am enthralled with the touch he puts on the ball now. I think, when he can work the middle of the field as good as he's doing right now, and layering throws as good as he's doing right now, that is giving me a lot more excitement than, maybe the touchdowns or the yardage or whatnot. But like I'm almost there. The last 4 games have been really nice.
Yeah.
I think the Kansas City game is going to be a heck of a lot of fun for evaluation, just because
at Lambeau.
Yeah. It's a young secondary, but the Chiefs got a good secondary. Like McDuffie is playing some great ball this year. They got a lot of young guys in there, like Jalen Watson, who played some good ball. I think Brian Cook at safety. They're really talented for being such a young group, and seeing like 2 talented young groups go against each other, I think it's gonna be a ton of fun. And I think it's Love trying to navigate some pressure. I know Karlaftis, I was looking this up earlier. He's got 46 pressures this year, and 7 sacks. He's not grading out great, but he's clearly being disruptive, which is what the Chiefs need. So a Spagnuolo defense, he gets a second shot at him, I think is going to be the best part about that game. And it's going to be super fun to see if the decision-making just kind of, if we see it against a tougher defense, if he can kind of just stay risk-averse in that game. Like,
yeah.
I think that's the one game the rest of the way where I'm like, if he aces that test, I'm there.
Definitely. Paul Robertson in the chat said, good morning, Kyle Brandt. Kyle's sitting there in an 80s retro t-shirt, might I say about 3 sizes too small, making weird noises. And then, of course, Nick McSwain and Derek K both had the same comment here. If we create merch, you know what's going to be on the sleeve or something.
Oh, for sure.
65%.
65%. That's what and it's going to be Mark Murphy's silhouette. And I am totally cool with paying him royalties. I am totally cool with that, right? If he needs it. I don't know. Maybe I haven't talked to him about his finances lately. So
maybe when he retires, he needs a few of those from his way.
Exactly. So back to Jordan Love. Let's talk about some of the statistics. Let's bore you with some numbers real quick. So when you look at Love as far as passer rating, okay, and this is where it gets a little shaky, guys. Why we got to let's take a step back for a second. And what's great news is he's rising on this list, right? Like he continues to improve. Passer rating now, he currently sits 20th in the league at 87.4. Okay. I don't think that's horrible. He's now above 60% in completion percentage, but again, in passer rating, he is ranked 20th right now. Okay. Look at the percentage of interceptions. This is another one that's kind of a little bit alarming, right? When you look at interception percentage, and guys, basically the percentage of passes in which he throws an interception, and then this is ranked throughout the league. He's currently sitting 26th, okay? And we've got it sorted lowest to highest, okay? So he's 26th worst, I guess you could say, as far as interception percentage. It's not to knock him. It's not to say he isn't the guy. This is how you identify the things you need to work on. as a quarterback, right? So interception percentage, his on target, we talked about his accuracy, right? His on target percentage. He is currently sitting 24th at 72.1. Now, what's on target percentage? On target percentage is you're hitting the receiver in stride. This is, in my opinion, it obviously includes pass breakups. As long as you were accurate from a sense of you couldn't have thrown the ball any better, that's the way I understand on target percentage. Okay. Now, catchable percentage, a little more lenient, right? That's obviously the ball was catchable. It might not have necessarily been quote unquote on target, but it was deemed catchable. This is according to SIS, 21st at 84.2%. So you're seeing passer rating and accuracy is kind of right there around that 20 range. Okay. Now, with that being said, what about this league? They don't look at the end of the day on the scoreboard. It doesn't say what's his completion percentage, what's his this. It's how many points do you score, right?
Yep.
In touchdowns, this is where it gets a little exciting. He's 5th in the league in touchdown passes at 19 touchdowns. Guys, he is tied for Pat Mahomes, who's sitting at 19. Tua Tagovailoa is just 2 ahead of him at 21. Josh Allen, 3 ahead of him at 22. And then Dak Prescott, 4 ahead of him at 23. Now, you see the interceptions there when it comes to the top 5. He's got the second most interceptions. Josh Allen has 12 interceptions. Jordan Love has 10. Okay. So, again, look at Dak Prescott, man. My goodness, that dude is balling out. 23 touchdowns, only 6 picks. Pretty impressive there. Now, let's take the PFF approach. I want to get your take, and I can pull all these up on demand for you if you need me to, Jake. But PFF grade, little small. I'll kind of point it out to you guys. According to PFF, Jordan Love ranks 18th at a 74.1 overall offensive PFF grade. Okay, so what you're seeing is PFF kind of aligns with the passer rating and the accuracy issues, right? And saying he's right around a top 20 quarterback is the way they see it according to their grades, right? But again, the league's about scoring points. Jake, what do you think about all that? Is there any of that you want me to pull up?
So I actually brought it up as well. You're talking about it. He is T9th in turnover-worthy play percentage. So I know the picks are there, but I think PFF would lean towards he's getting more unlucky with the interceptions than others. I think is a really nice one to point out as well, because you have somebody I think who, you look at Brock Purdy, whose turnover-worthy play percentage is 4.1%, and that is not showing up on interceptions. I think he's got 6 on the year, if I'm correct on that. So I think it's just another interesting little tidbit there. And then I think Love is sort of the middle of the pack right now. Big time throw percentage. Yeah, 16th. So ahead of CJ Stroud, actually, right now. Ahead of Burrow, ahead of Mahomes, ahead of Goff. So he's.
So when you said turnover worthy plays, are you saying he is not the best in the league? Is that right?
Turnover worthy play percentage.
That's good information.
So I think he's got 11 turnover worthy plays, that's hovering around. I think it's if you're going like most is highest, he's like middle of the pack again with Stroud and Lamar. All of them have 11 turnover worthy plays this year. But when you go to the percentage marks, like he's doing really well actually in that. He's just getting unlucky. And I think part of it, right, you look at the interception to Dobbs, right, in the last Detroit game earlier this year, where it's miscommunication. Love thinks, Dobbs is going to sit down, and Dobbs instead decides I'm getting into scramble mode. He doesn't know that. He's not in Dobbs' head. He doesn't know Dobbs is going anywhere.
Right.
So that's a tough one to put sort of on Love. But of course, just the counting stats are going to, because that's how it's always been. But I think PFF does a good job highlighting, how, Love's done some big time throws, and the turnover plays are up there a little bit, but he's playing some gunslinger ball, and I think when you look at EPA per play and like completion percentage over expectation, which that second stat is going up, it's looking a lot better the past few weeks. I think weeks 9 to 11, if you just took those, he was like 3rd in that composite behind Dak and Stroud, I believe, were the only ahead of him. So he's sort of clicking here mid-season, which is really nice to see. And like I said, I'm not there yet. I think you're in agreement, right? I think you're not there yet quite yet, Clayton.
Right. Getting close.
We're trending in the right direction, which is great to see as the calendar's about to turn December.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to get. Imagine if we had pulled him, guys, when some fans were calling to pull him and go, let's see what Sean Clifford got. And I'm not dogging on this. That's not a backhanded, I'm not trying to. Imagine if you had, you wouldn't have been able to see this peak. And we're going to find out, is it a peak or is it just a part of the ascension, right?
Yeah.
And if you had approached it from, let's pull him and try Clifford. Okay, Clifford didn't work out. Now let's put Love back in. The timing's off with the offense. The receivers haven't gotten used to Love. Love hasn't gotten used to the receivers. All the choice aspect, like Matt LaFleur has been very vocal. He's very hesitant on who he plays in the F in that flyer spot because they have to be able to read. They have to be able to read and react to choice routes, right? That's very, very important in their offense. So there's just so many things that go into factor for it. So that's why I think the decision had to be made. You got to let him play this season out. And again, man, it's exciting. It's exciting that we're turning in the right direction. And for me,
we didn't take Clifford in the 5th to be, a starting QB. This is to fill a backup spot. We're not evaluating Clifford this year. I'm sorry. That's not what it's going to be. Love didn't get, an extra little, year on the deal for next year to say, oh yeah, let's see what Clifford's got. Like, sorry, that's just how it is. Like, we got to find out if the first round guy is, with a lot of this talent, is that guy. That's how it is.
Definitely. Derek K in the chat says, please everyone go smash the like button. We would appreciate it if you guys would just hit the like button for us. That'll help other Packer fans find this podcast and this YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. If you don't like this kind of content, hey man, just pretend like you never heard us, right? No big deal. No big deal at all.
You can get more people in on the inside jokes. Just saying.
Yeah, there you go. And you probably get less people that come in and go, what are they talking about, Diesel? I'm out of here. This is stupid. So let's see what Christian says. Christian says, my childhood was Favre, so I'll always have a little bigger place in my heart for 4 versus 12. There's a lot of people that see it that way, man. It's, he made me kind of fall in love with the game of football, I'll be honest with you. Just seeing the way that his teammates loved him and how he played and all the things that, I don't know, it was just that era I think they needed. I think John Madden, we just celebrated John Madden on Thanksgiving, obviously. Yeah. I think he has a lot to do with that too. John Madden was he was definitely leading the campaign trail like I am for Joe Barry for Favre back in the day. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Since we mentioned Joe Barry, let's talk about the defense a minute. You good with that? We'll wrap this big bear up.
Let's.
Probably should have carried it over to the next show tonight, but it's totally cool. Let me get adjusted here. I'm an organized freak here, dude. I'm a logistician. That's my personality type. So I'm very to it's either fact or it's fiction. I don't want to hear anything in between. And if we're not organized, I'm throwing something through the window.
All right, there we go.
How I operate. Defensive points per game. If you're a Joe Barry hater, might want to move on to the next podcast. So NFL team opponent points per game. Okay. Yeah. They are currently sitting 10th now at 20.4. Okay. To put that into perspective, above them is Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, Dallas, Kansas City, Baltimore, and San Francisco. We were talking about Kansas City's struggles on offense. Well, their defense has really stepped up this year. Only 16.4 points per game. They kind of have the edge in the matchup over the Packers, in my opinion, in that regard, because our offense has been the part of our team that struggled. And the fact that their defense has really stood up. Now, the last 3 games, Kansas City, 19.7 points is what they've allowed. The Packers, obviously, 21.7 the last 3 games. So, with that being said, points per game, they're only giving up, the Packers, 20.4 points per game. Now, if you break it down a little bit further and go points per play, Green Bay is 7th in points per play. Now, I'm showing this because all year long, I've pointed this out. And I've been told that we're not allowed to acknowledge it because they haven't played anyone. We've now played the Lions twice, and we played the Chargers offense as well. If we come out against Kansas City somehow, some way, keep them around 20 points. And again, we held Detroit to 14 points going into that final drive they had, that final scoring drive they had. And you could tell the defense kind of played, okay, we're playing the clock now.
Yeah.
Jake, I've got people coming at me on Twitter going, if it was just without that last drive, right? If they hadn't give up that last drive, I'd be more on board. If they go out and they play overly aggressive and Detroit doesn't score on that drive, guess what happens? Everyone's going, this is Joe Barry being too aggressive. He's got to know the clock's his opponent here. Like
you're not going to win.
You're not. And again, listen, my stance has been firm all year long. Do I think Joe Barry's a great defensive coordinator? I personally don't. But when I look at the stats and I look at how this defense has performed, I have a hard time saying Joe Barry's the problem. It's hard to say that. But what do you think, man? I know it's been a roller coaster this year, Jake, when it comes to the defense. At times, I think people were completely ticked off when you seen Preston Smith in coverage and it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, other times you come out and you have a a great game like they did against Detroit, man. How are you seeing it? You don't necessarily have to answer the question, is Joe Barry the guy moving forward, but what do you think defensively?
So I didn't see the Lions on there. Were they on there?
Oh, let's check what's on.
Where's Detroit at? Oh no, don't see
They're
him in
in
the
the
top
basement somewhere.
18. So that's weird.
Yeah, it is true.
I don't see anybody in Detroit calling for anybody to be fired anywhere. No, but I think that's interesting because I think, it's like it's a who have you played type of thing. And like, who has Detroit played, to be honest? I know they've played Kansas City, right? Obviously, it'd be nice to get that, game under our belt as well to kind of be a measuring stick for Detroit. But like, man, guys, Detroit gave up 37 to Seattle. If you haven't watched Seattle lately, the offense doesn't look that good. They are struggling. And Detroit gave up 37 to them. So, Detroit's playing pretty much the same schedule. I don't know what we want to do with that information, but like, do I think Joe Barry's probably the guy? Not necessarily, because I think there's something that's trickling down philosophically, where if you're going to play 3-4, right, like you have to have guys who can drop into coverage, right? But then, Goody and company have always seemed to prefer 270-pound, outside linebacker / edge rushers. Well, that doesn't really compute. That's more of a 4-3 thing. So it seems like there's, when you see Preston Smith in coverage, that feels like a disconnect from coaching to, the general manager a little bit. I think is something that I've kind of talked a little bit about on at times as well. So I think with what the personnel has, the personnel that Barry's been given this year, I think he's really done well, right? You haven't had Jair for, stretches. Campbell hasn't been there for stretches. Walker hasn't been there for stretches. Ford's been out a while. And you obviously just traded Rasul Douglas. Like, this is a pretty solid job that I think Barry's doing. And clearly, obviously it helps when Rashawn Gary does that, right? That certainly helps the Joe Barry thing going along. But it's hard to argue with the results right now. And the points per play thing, I think, is really, really good, where you look at, okay, they're playing a little bend, don't break. And that's kind of what that last drive against Detroit was. It's like, okay, yeah, you can run 18 plays and score a touchdown if you want, but the game's going to be over. And I think that is, that's exactly what they needed to do. So I think Barry's going to be that. It's going to be a lot of, we're going to make you make the mistake. And the Lions made mistakes yesterday, right? That's kind of how this defense is built. It stinks when they go on 18 play touchdown drives, but
right,
you're going to get some drives that are 18 plays where they're either going to turn the ball over, or they're kicking, a field goal, which they'll take every time with the offense starting to get in a groove here. So yeah, I think he's done a really solid job, because I think you've had some pretty inconsistent performances this year from guys you expect to show up week in and week out. Alexander and Clark being two of those guys, right? So yeah, I think he's done a really good job, and he gets now Baker, he gets Tommy DeVito, he gets Bryce Young, who that entire organization, offensive, scheme, structure, personnel, that's a mess. And then you get the Bears one more time. Like, he's got chances to go out and just throw some haymakers against some bad offenses. And, it's all you can do. I mean, you can only play your schedule.
That's it. Omer in the chat said this team's going to the playoffs because Seattle's about to slide. Keep in mind, though, Seattle, according to the 33rd team, is the 12th ranked team in the league. So, they've struggled of late. I think there's some cyclical nature to that. Is Geno Smith hurt? Do you know? Has he been?
He does have the elbow injury. He had an elbow injury on Sunday against the Rams. They had to have him come back in to finish the game. I think he wanted to finish it because Drew Lock is, he's Drew Lock. He's a backup for a reason.
Let me translate that for our listeners, because you're way too respectful. He's saying Drew Lock is booty cheeks. Okay,
yes, I am. Yes, I am. But I think, him being hurt, their offensive line being in shambles, they haven't had their second-year tackles around for most of the year. They're trying to figure out how to use JSM because they don't have enough time to let him run these deep stuff over the middle, right? They don't have that kind of time, so they're trying to figure out how to use him. The running game's been very hot or cold, and now, like we mentioned at the top of the show, they just played San Francisco, and they're 6-5. They have Dallas next Thursday, which, if your offense is struggling, that's not the team I would want to play necessarily. Then they get San Francisco again on the road this time, and then they get Philly.
Yeah, definitely.
It could be 6-8 in a hurry, and they got to fight from behind. Like, that's not where you want to be. So
not at all. Yeah. The Badger Trio in the chat says this team was looking at a top 5 pick just 5 weeks ago. Now we're in the hunt for the playoffs. Hey man, the NFL is a wild animal. There's no doubt about it. Cheesehead Murph said, I'm biased to who can only play who is in front of you. I mean, it's so true. That's what drives me crazy about. Well, they haven't played anybody. You only played. The reason I have a problem with DVOA and stuff like that is because that DVOA at the first of the season could be totally different by the end of the season.
for sure.
Right. And that's why it's like, let's calm down with, that stat being this gospel, if you will, of how to determine how good a football a defense is or a football team is.
Yeah.
Again, all information is good information. Let's take it all, put it in the formula and see what we come away with. It's kind of
17 games is already a small sample size, right?
Yeah.
The football doesn't have the luxury of being baseball, right? We have 162 games to work off of data, right? Like we can only use for DVOA, right, through 1 week, right? You can only use a lot of what you saw last year and what you kind of perceived last year. And by week 12, you still don't have it's not a huge size. At least it's a little better, right? Based on what we've seen. But, things can change really quickly. Like you said, for Green Bay, for Denver, right? Things have changed quickly there as well. Like it's pretty wild. And the NFC, I mean, I think we kind of knew this coming to the season where, people are kind of at the, by late August, they're like, well, Green Bay's roster's not bad. Like they're in the NFC right now. There's, you could say there were kind of 3 teams. Maybe say it was 4 if you thought Seattle was in that mix. You thought Detroit was going to add to that mix. But after that, it was kind of pretty much open season where, anybody could kind of sneak in if they had, a decent season. So that's kind of where we're at.
Definitely. And, the other thing too, we were all saying, this isn't a bad roster. I mean, we got Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones had arguably his worst year of his career. I mean, it's like you never know what's gonna unfold. Now, I want to believe the injuries are the reason. Let's hope so. The run blocking definitely hasn't helped, but Badger Trio in here. First of all, if you guys would, we got a herd in here right now. Hit that like button for us if you don't mind. That will help other Packer fans find this channel, this podcast, and this content. Again, if you like the content, we'd appreciate you doing that. The Badger Trio says, I know it's crazy, but all 6 games are winnable games. They absolutely are, man.
Yes.
That's what's so exciting about the coming down the stretch here. Cold weather football at Lambeau, man. Oh, I can't wait. Derek K says, like we said, momentum is real, absolutely. And we'll end it with this one right here, Jake. Bill in the chat says, Barry better have a good plan for defending the middle of the field against KC. Anytime you play quarters coverage, which is, this is a Fangio-based system, although we played a ton of cover 1 man, cover 1 triple rat. They broke out the triple rat again this week. I've seen it on Chalk Talk. You guys will hear it later today. Barry loves in those passing situations. You know what? Let's just bring 4. Let's play man coverage, single high safety, and drop 3 zones across the middle. It is hilarious watching quarterbacks before they finish their drop. Jake, they're like, "What in the world am I supposed to do here?"
Yeah, right.
They're immediately starting to think, "How can I find a way to extend the play?" So love that triple rat look. But the answer there, Bill, the very very short answer is 2 on the shelf, middle field open. Right. 1 on the shelf, middle field closed. You're probably going to see a lot of single high. Now, what does that do? That opens up the sideline shots, right? The back shoulder throws, all those things. Now, do they have the receivers to do that, right? You're probably going to see Quay matched up on Kelsey a lot. Quay, you correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but I feel like if there's one strength to Quay's game, it's probably pass coverage. I mean, he's got the athleticism to run with those tight ends. If you can prevent him from making those mistakes as far as penalties, the last play of the game there the last play you'll see on Chalk Talk today was him running kind of it was a flat route from Laporta, and he wheeled it off at the sideline. Quay, step for step with Sam Laporta, who's been arguably a top 10 tight end this year, his rookie years. Now, I'm not trying to say Sam Laporta is, on the same level as Travis Kelce, please understand. But I think that you're probably going to try to bracket cover him too. That's something else that got overlooked last game when the game was on the line and they got kind of aggressive. You seen Keyshawn outside leverage on Keenan, and they had a little inside help. They were bracket covering Keenan. You'll probably see that with Kelce. Make MVS beat you. Make these other receivers beat you. But Pacheco's healthy, right? Am I thinking, Jake?
I believe so, yeah. I don't think he's been on the report.
I think Pacheco is a very underrated player in this league, and he just looks, to me, he looks pretty dynamic. But what do you think about –
He's memed because he runs funny, which is fair.
Yeah.
He looks like he's angry at the grass, but he has been very effective for them. He was crucial for them, I think, late last year and in the postseason. So
yeah,
he's going to be, he's going to be a problem. Yeah, I think this hasn't been the best year for Kelce either. Right. And, I think if you're going to have 22-year-old, ridiculously good athlete, Quay Walker on, 33, 34-year-old Travis Kelce, like, I kind of feel pretty decent about that. Like, Kelce is at his best because he knows, okay, like, I see where this defender is leveraged. I see post snap where guys are moving. I'm going to find the space. And so he is so good at that. And he's so good at, being proactive before the ball arrives, because he's, it translates to him being a good yak player. So he's a problem, and he's been a problem for a long time. And I think bracket coverage will help. I think that, maybe, he had some drops. He fumbled in a big spot last week as well. Like, that's, it's a little uncharacteristic.
Yeah.
I think.
What do you think's changed in his life, Jake?
Well, who can say? Listen, hey, he's got to do him though. I get it. Like, he's been in the league a long time, right? Like, it's, he's probably getting close. He's getting close to where, might be close to hanging it up, find one more ring, and then after find maybe another ring, after he plays. But like, he's hitting that tail end where he's, slowly but surely gonna maybe start creeping down that list of, like, when you make a tight end list across the league. I think Laporta has been outstanding this year. So I think that's honestly, like, based on how they've played this year, at least, like, that's a pretty good measuring stick of kind of how you would compare Kelce right now, because it hasn't been Kelce's best year. Laporta's been outstanding as a rookie. Like, both of them deserve respect. So yeah, you have to let MVS beat you. You have to let Justin Watson beat you. Let Tony beat you. Let Sky Moore beat you. Like,
yes.
Stop me, Chad, if you've heard of any of these names this year, because it's been just absolute cheeks out there for these guys. So yeah, I mean, I think the only other threat on that team right now is Rashee Rice, to be honest, because he does a lot of the same things as Kelce, where he's just excellent at making slight adjustments in the route to find space. He's such a good space hunter against zone coverage that it's going to be him and Kelce that you're going to have to check and see where they are on the field at all times, because those two guys are going to find space for Mahomes to deliver the ball to them. So it's going to be about, okay, you can let them have those short plays. That's fine, right? Like, just don't break. You can bend a little bit next week.
Absolutely. Very well said. Yeah, there's some people that are saying Kelce's having a down year because he's, they got the whip out on him. I don't know, man.
You can call me anything you want, but don't call me that.
He's hearing the noise, and let's just hope he don't hear it before they play the Packers. That would suck for him to put it all together. I looked it up though on PFF, and it seems like they've got him ranked 4th right now at 80.6. So a down year for Kelce, as one quarterback once said, is probably a career year for others. So
that's a good point. It's a good point.
All right, guys, we're way over. I really appreciate you taking the time to hop on here, Jake. This was a lot of fun, man. It's always a pleasant surprise. If you guys would hit that like button for us if you like this kind of content, we'd appreciate it. Want to give a special thanks to everyone in the chat. You guys were absolutely awesome today, keeping the conversation going. You carry me every single episode, and I don't take it lightly. I really appreciate you guys doing that. So we'll be back later today. I was thinking about doing Chalk Talk midday and then going PTA live tonight, but there may be a chance we switch it up and do Chalk Talk for PTA tonight, so the guys can be on with us and we can just kind of break down some film. Obviously, the stream will be going up and coming down a lot because of the copyright stuff, but if you'll just hang tight, it'll continue to come back up. And, of course, you can watch it in its entirety later, but we may end up doing that. I got to take the wife out. We're going to go out and do some shopping, a little bit of Christmas shopping today. So if I make it back in time, we'll do a separate Chalk Talk episode. If not, we'll just blend it into PTA tonight. But really, really appreciate you, Jake. Thank you for your time. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.